What a well-behaved and orderly crowd tonight. Everyone's here and seated on time. That's fantastic. Thank you all for coming out tonight. My name is Kevin Burke. I'm the Economic Development and Downtown Administrator for the City of San Marcos. I work for that man in the back, Jared Miller. He's our City Manager in the City Manager's office. One of the things that we're working on now is parking management. And so that is, of course, the purpose of our meeting tonight. My introductions are going to be very brief. What I want to do is just turn it over to our consultants this evening from Kimley Horn. And they're going to go through a brief presentation this evening, talk about some big picture stuff, what it is that we're working on, what it is that the council's directed us to do, and what we're going to be bringing back to them in the near future that's going to involve input from all of you to help guide the decisions that the council is going to make regarding parking in San Marcos. So with that, after that we'll have time for question and answers and hope to get a good dialogue going here tonight. So please enjoy the presentation and get your questions ready for our consultants because they are the experts and they're the ones that are going to help guide us through this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for sharing your evening with us tonight. I know that many of you have other places you might like to be, but we really appreciate and value your input. So Dennis and I both appreciate your time. My name is Vanessa Soulsby. I'm with Kimley Horn and Associates, and I'm based in our Denver, Colorado office. However, I am a native Austinite, one of the few and proud, and lived in Texas for most of my life. Now my family still lives here, so I'm really excited to be back in my home state. As I mentioned, I'm now with Kimley Horn, but a little bit about my background, just so there's some context for all of you. Prior to becoming a consultant, I managed a downtown association and a business improvement district. So my clients and customers were downtown business owners, property owners, residents. And it was my job to advocate on their behalf. And during my tenure as a downtown leader, we formed a public-private partnership, a group of volunteers to take over management of the municipal parking system in a town of about 125,000 people. Our goal was to transform the system into something that worked for the community, that improved quality of life, that improved access, and that provided options for not only those who chose to drive to park, but those who were riding bicycles, those who wanted to ride a shuttle. So it's really a comprehensive approach to parking and access management, because a real philosophy of mine and of Dennis's is that people don't come downtown San Marcos to park. They come down to go to a business, they come down to do activities or go to an event, and the experience they have when parking can often flavor or color their experience. If they have a negative one, if they can't find parking or they get a ticket, that negatively impacts their experience and they choose to go somewhere else. So our real goal is to transform and develop a parking management process and system that really supports everything else you're trying to do here to improve quality of life, retain your small hometown feel, but also get prepared for the future of what's coming in the pipeline of development and your relationship with the university. So we're really excited to be here and really value your trust in us to help get you where you need to go. That's a little bit about myself, and then I'll let Dennis, you want to introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background?
So I've been doing parking management and consulting for about, embarrassing to say, 30 plus years. So I've been doing this for quite a while. I worked on the parking initiative report that was developed in 2012, which is the plan that we're going to be moving forward into implementation as part of this project. So I've been here before. Anybody remember the previous plan from 2012? A few of you. Good. Anyway, I think that's it for introductions.
Thank you. So quickly, what are we going to do tonight? The majority of the time we want to spend listening to you and hearing your feedback. I'm hoping that all of you are here for a specific reason. Either you want to learn more about what we're doing or you have feedback you'd like to share. We're going to start off by talking a little bit about why we need to manage parking in the first place, what that means to overall quality of life, what it means to helping people access the places they want to go. We're also going to share with you some case studies from right here in Texas, but also across the nation as well. Communities that are of a similar size, a little bit bigger, and then there's some communities included that are significantly bigger but have some specific areas of similarity here with San Marcos. And then we're going to talk a little bit about why we're here and what we're doing with this particular consulting engagement and what you can expect over the next couple of months as we move through that process. and then we'll end with a Q&A. And as is always extremely dangerous when you're doing any sort of public presentation, we are going to try and use some technology. So throughout the meeting, we can hear from you. And so if those of you who are so inclined and interested, who'd like to participate along with us, we're going to use a tool called Poll Everywhere. How many of you have ever done the thing where you have polling and you respond and it's live on the screen? We don't actually have polling equipment, so all you need is your cell phone. It does not have to be a new cell phone. It can be any age of cell phone as long as there's keys on it. And again, if you choose to participate, we're going to test it out and see if your answers appear live on the screen, which I am sincerely hoping that they will. And if not, we will move on to the next thing. So, here is the first question. And to participate, you only have to do this step once. You text SMTX, as in San Marcos, Texas, to 22333, and then you select your choice. So for me, I select to float the river. So I'm going to respond, and hopefully it will listen to my response. So that's me. So if any of you would like to participate, we'll be asking some more serious questions targeted to parking and access throughout the presentation. If you want to get yourself set up, perfect. Awesome. Thank you guys. So again, once we move to the slides and have additional polling questions, the instructions will be at the top. So if you chose not to join us on this particular question, you can always participate in the future. And thank you. The reason we do this is just because we do have a larger group. We want to make sure that your voices are heard. Those of you who may not want to speak up during the meeting. But we also, once you respond to some of our more targeted parking questions, we get to capture that data as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Dennis, and he's going to talk a little bit about why we manage parking. And I'll be back with you shortly to talk a little bit more about those case studies I mentioned earlier.
So if you don't get anything else out of this presentation tonight, what I hope you get is how complex parking is. We used to say parking is not rocket science. It's a lot more complicated because of the politics and everything else that comes into play. But when we think about managing parking, we're not just thinking about putting cars in spaces. We're really talking about a much broader picture. And really, a lot of times, it's all about economic development, or it's all about customer service, or improving the downtown experience. So we really think we like to focus not just on parking, but parking as part of a larger access management equation, as Vanessa mentioned. Parking is also a limited resource that needs to be managed. It can be a shared public resource. That can be very important, especially if it's a very limited amount of parking that you have. Talk about parking as part of the overall downtown experience. I think that's really critical. And when done well, it can really help you support a lot of other community initiatives. So in a lot of communities, they're talking about wanting more downtown residential, more green space, or more public areas to participate in. And a lot of times, parking can be a platform to help you achieve those larger goals. So we're going to skip this little video from the International Parking Institute that talks about why we manage parking. We're going to skip past that. So when we think about this idea of integrated access management, with a broader access management equation, we really are trying to expand the vision and encompass these other strategies. So you can see active transportation, that's bikes and peds, transit, paratransit services, carpools, van pools, transportation demand management programs. A new one is called shared mobility options. That's Uber, Lyft. I don't know if you've heard of Loop or Movable. There's all kinds of new options out there. But all those pieces come together in a larger access management program to really provide better access for the community overall. There's quite a menu of options here. So really, for us, it's about providing options. So you can do nothing, live with the status quo. You can move to the level of having some level of parking regulations and control. You can use time restrictions. You already do some of these things now. Residential parking programs can help residential areas where there's influx of parking into those areas. Better control that. Introducing paid parking is an option, and that's actually part of the plan. We'll be mapping out what that might look like going forward. Again, for City Council to review and approve at a later date. And then a higher level is sort of focusing on the demand side of the equation. If you can't afford to build parking structures or build more parking because the land is just not available, the other thing you can do is work on the demand side of the equation and try to get people to use transportation alternatives, transit, bikes, and peds. One of the big things that's important here is to talk about the idea of being careful or sensitive to unintended consequences. There was a small town called Manitou Springs, Colorado. They did a big streetscape. They basically had one street that wound through their downtown. It's a tourist destination right at the base of Pikes Peak. They did a fabulous job of redoing the streetscape. It was really difficult on the businesses, though, for the 2 years it took them to get through that process. I'm sure you guys can relate to that. You just went through something very similar here. But one of the things that they wanted to do after that was to manage their on-street parking and put in paid parking. Manitou Springs is interesting from a geographic perspective because it's basically in the bottom of a valley. And when they started to think about managing public parking on the street and looking at paid parking, well, that's where all the employees were parking. But they really needed to free up that space for customers. But by moving to paid parking as the first thing, they really created an unintended consequence of all the employees not really having anywhere else to go. It ended up going up the hill into the neighborhoods and creating a big residential parking problem. So that's just one example of an unintended consequence that we want to be sensitive to. Oh, and developing additional parking. That's the last, because if you get to the point where you're adding structured parking, how much do you think a structured parking, one space costs in a garage? Any ideas?
$45,000.
Oh my gosh.
20,000.
It can be anywhere between 20 and 45. I mean, we've seen all over. If you go down below, it can increase by 1.5 to 2.5 times that cost. So it's a very expensive option. This little exercise was kind of interesting. I'm an amateur photographer, so I take photographs everywhere I go. So looking back over my collection over the years, we kind of started noticing how parking was changing. I've been doing this for 30 years, so I've seen a lot of change, but parking was often ignored or undervalued, even an afterthought. But nowadays, some of the biggest companies in the country, you see it as a potential market advantage. So you can see this thing back here is family-friendly parking. What makes that family-friendly is right by the front door. It's a little dead-end lot. So if you're wrangling 2 or 3 young kids with you, you don't have to worry about cut-through parking. So you're in sort of a semi-protected area. So that's, but again, it's a good insight. It's something that if you have a family you might value. It's a potential market advantage. Statistically, I used to run a hospital for parking for a hospital system. Parking was statistically the high crime area. But nowadays, parking systems have gotten much more advanced with their security systems. They're monitoring them well. They're having ambassadors and rovers go through the garages on a regular basis. So the standard for security and parking has really gone up in recent years. We used to say parking was at best dull, gray, and utilitarian. At worst, dark, dangerous, and scary. But when we think about new parking design, you can see this other garage. It's got higher floor-to-floor heights. Everything's painted white. The sheer walls along the ramp are cut through so you get better visibility. It's what they call long span construction, so it's just more open. And that's more of the modern standard. Parking can also be very confusing and frustrating. This poor guy. Chicago tried to replace, remember when Chicago privatized the meter system? You recall that a few years ago? They monetized it, got like $500 million or something in upfront payment in exchange for a 50-year lease. Well, one of the dumb things they did right at the beginning was they raised the rates before they put in the new technology. You physically could not put enough quarters in that meter. They couldn't empty it fast enough. That's what that guy's so frustrated. He was trying to pay, and the meter was full. They just couldn't empty it fast enough. This is a new multi-space meter in a garage in Seattle. You can tell people weren't quite sure what to do there. But the good news is that the user interface on a lot of new technology is very simple. It's pretty much a 1, 2, 3 system, and it's really quite simple to use. We used to deaden the whole block in downtown environments, just using basically service and access and nothing else, as opposed to integrated mixed-use facility that has parking built into it, but it also has activated street-level uses, just a much better design. I don't know if you can read that. In the back of this guy, it says validation. He says, I don't reimburse, I validate. I acknowledge how difficult it was for you to park. I validate it. Not very helpful, not very sympathetic. But parking has become very complex, as I mentioned, technologically sophisticated, and as a profession, it's actually growing in respect, so that's a good thing. In a lot of downtowns, parking is the single biggest land use in the downtown. So if you look at all that red, that was mostly surface parking in city of Michigan. But with the new plan, what they tried to do was build some structured parking, free up some of that surface parking for green space and parks, and also for new development. So you can see the mix of parking went way down or went into structures with a much better urban environment, much more walkable, much better activated streetscapes. So that's kind of all built into the idea of parking management as far as we're concerned. We used to just build parking to react to whatever the demand was. No matter what it was, we had to build more parking to satisfy that. And a lot of times it was pretty full, but a lot of times it was half empty as well. The new concept is really promote shared parking and less reliance on individual motorized transport. This is a system at the University of Washington called U-Car. So if you might consider something other than driving your single occupant vehicle to work, but you see you're worried because sometimes I have to run out during the day and I need a car, the U-Car system was basically an in-house system where you could rent a car for the day or by the hour and take care of those trips during the day without having to drive your vehicle. Sometimes parking is seen as kind of a frustrating game of find it if you can. But more and more the technology will actually guide you straight to the space. So these single space systems in garages have a green light over the open space where you can look at it and see all red, not even bother going down that road. It essentially guides you to where the available parking is. So in general, there's about 8 key areas where the parking system, the parking management area is advancing. So embracing innovation and new technologies, new economic development strategies is part of that. Leveraging new technologies, pay by phone is one of the big ones that's really gaining a lot of acceptance now. Enhanced planning, we're going to talk a little bit about each of these. The program branding and marketing to help promote the downtown and to be competitive with other environments. Community partnering, so we're part of the community conversation about special events and other issues. This whole idea of kind of reinventing the urban environment, creating better mixed-use facilities, a more walkable downtown. Looking at sustainability issues, really trying to reduce the carbon footprint, and finally just enhancing the overall downtown experience as we go forward. So one of the things that's coming out of this is the technology can help us find parking. You can have apps that will tell you where available parking is, to tell you how much the parking costs, if there is a cost. If you need more time, you can actually extend your parking session remotely at the coffee shop from your phone in a lot of cases. We can use the data to do what they call performance-based pricing. So if you have high demand areas, you can price them differently than lower demand areas. You can even potentially eliminate time limits, or at least give people the option to extend their time. So if the first 2 hours was $1 an hour, but you wanted to stay for a third hour, you'd be willing to pay a premium for that. The third hour or the fourth hour might cost you $2 an hour, something like that. But either through QR codes or pay-by-phone systems, all these options are possible. So the idea of enhanced planning and strategic plans for parking, you actually did a good parking plan several years ago, and we're just looking at implementing that now. There's a lot of new tools in terms of visualizing parking systems. I don't know if we can make this work. I think give it a try. This is an interesting, so let me set it up right. This was a art gallery, famous architect designed this beautiful art gallery on the top of a hill in Kansas City. Anybody ever been to this place? Beautiful place, but there's one problem with putting a museum on the top of a hill. Where are you going to park? So they really had parking issues, but they didn't want to compromise the integrity of the beautiful architectural design. So they wanted a plan for how to add parking in that situation. And this, if it works, will give you a sense of what the planning team that put this together, my old firm, to show brand, naming it, coordinated media outreach, plans to deal with service disruption, partnering with local experts, and just understanding your audience better. This is all part of a good parking management program. When we talk about community partnering, we're talking about parking programs that work with the downtown community, participating in the downtown master planning process, participating, potentially funding community bike programs, collaborative car share programs, enhancing pedestrian amenities. Parking can really have an input on all of these things, providing free parking for downtown farmers markets or downtown festivals, and just making sure everything works effectively. There's a whole new universe out there in the planning world of this kind of this new urban environment, if you will. So the idea of new urbanism or form-based code or transit-oriented development, when you've heard these terms, is really about prioritizing placemaking and walkability and looking at parking as a component of overall access again. So enhancing the experience. Anybody read this book called The Experience Economy? It's a fascinating book, and basically it argues we've been through several types of economies, agrarian, technological, industrial. They basically argue that we've all got plenty of stuff now. What we're really willing to spend money on is a positive experience. And so companies that are really forward-thinking are really focused on that experience. Marriott's a good example of that. But it really comes down to parking. There's an old saw in parking that says parking is the first and last impression of your community, and that's really true. So the fact that we can influence positively the experience that your customers have is positive. Good design is also an important factor in actually getting away from that dull gray parking structure and actually enhancing the interior of parking environments, which is something that's moving forward. So what are some others doing in this regard? So Houston, Texas, we were actually going to do a strategic plan for the city of Houston, which we did. And we thought what was going to happen was essentially a merging of their on and off street programs. But because of the funding issues relative to how they had structured everything and the bond indebtedness for several facilities they were using parking, they really didn't want to go down that road. But what the mayor came back with was, we've got a good parking program in the CBD, but we've got like 8 areas that surround downtown Houston: Bryce Village, Washington Avenue, East Downtown, Museum District, those kind of places. Essentially, we developed a process for each of those smaller areas around the downtown to have a customized parking management plan. And that was fairly innovative. So really understanding the neighborhood context, understanding current conditions, understanding the values of that area, really developing a customized plan specifically for those areas. Provo, Utah is a place where we just finished up a strategic plan and we're currently working with them to implement that as well. Very similar here. Both were looking forward, both were experiencing a lot of growth, both saw parking becoming a bigger and bigger issue in the years to come, and they wanted to get a head start on creating a parking program essentially from scratch. So basically finding a home organizationally, developing issues regarding neighborhoods, which were just south of Brigham Young University for them. They had an issue of predatory towing by some private towing companies. Got out of hand. The mayor put out a blog on this topic and got 14,000 responses in a week. So people were pretty dialed into that issue. Anyway, enhancing their enforcement, but also just building the program essentially from the ground up. Boulder is kind of a bookend to this. Boulder has been doing parking management for 20 plus years. They really are progressive. They really are advanced. But what they're doing right now is they're trying to realign the parking and transportation and management programs so that they're aligned with the larger community goals as expressed in their downtown master plan, as expressed in their citywide transportation plan, as expressed in their climate change commitments and climate goals. So they were looking at these 8 areas and trying to make sure that all those things were aligned with larger city policy. Cedar Rapids, this is Vanessa's little stomping grounds. They had about 10,000 parking spaces, 6 garages, a pretty sophisticated system. But the business and community was not real happy. They were complaining quite a bit about the then we ended up recommending, the city went through a dramatic flood. I don't remember 2008, they had a huge, one of the worst floods in the nation's history. 10 square miles of downtown was dirty water. And as part of, the city was really distracted, as you can imagine, digging out from that whole mess. And as part of that time, in that time frame, we were there doing the parking plan. And as part of that whole thing, we decided to try to shift the parking management over to the business improvement district because they really had passion and had a real interest in trying to improve the system. The city was busy dealing with FEMA issues, and so they allowed that to happen, and it was a fantastic evolution for their program. They really got all new technology. They dealt with the flood issues. They had several new garages built in the last few years. So a real success story.
I think a really interesting point to that story is that during the flood, we lost all of our meters. They washed away. And so at first, the downtown business leaders were like, this is great. But they were really one of the biggest voices to lobby getting them back in as quickly as possible. Because what they found in recovery was that when people can party, everyone was just staying there all day. They couldn't get customers there. They couldn't have access to the building. So it was a really interesting accidental case study to see if we needed 5 parking meters and lost them and could ask for them back. And again, a lot of these case studies were very location specific and specific to the community, but I thought that was an interesting result of that process.
Ann Arbor has another very forward-thinking system, and they were trying to rethink the way they even think about building new facilities. And they really try to think of everybody as a pedestrian, even the people that are parking in their garages. They started designing their parking facilities from a human perspective, not just, will it work functionally to get cars in and out. So higher floor heights, good lighting, a whole range of good design options, and that parking facility turned out really nice. Boise, Idaho, we've done lots of work in Boise, Idaho. Boise is one of my favorite cities. Great downtown, very walkable, very people-oriented. They are working hard to become one of the best cities in the country. They were on the Forbes top municipalities list for several years. They really focus on wayfinding, quick access to parking information online, including all the parking messaging and all their marketing materials. They have a first hour free program in the garages, which is very good. That is actually a plaza that's over structured parking. So all of their facilities are mixed use in some regard. In this case, they actually have a plaza for public gatherings above their parking facility. They really look at parking as a again, think about where should parking live within a municipal organization. In their case, they're in the urban renewal agency of the city, and they put parking in the mix with planning, placemaking, public art, and streetscapes and infrastructure. So parking is just part of what they do to make downtown a great place. Billings, Montana, another western town that's not too much different from your town, actually. But again, the stakeholders, the downtown people were thinking they had big parking problems. They wanted to have a parking plan. And they just thought the system was unwieldy and complex and not really easy to understand. Employees were taking no valuable on-street spaces. There was a lack of enforcement, or in some cases, over-enforcement. Parking plan and enforcement need had to be sensitive to neighborhood districts. All issues that we've heard. We've been having meetings all day. We've heard a lot of these same issues. So what's coming up next for San Marcos? So the goal of our current work is to transition from the planning work that was done in 2012 and was sort of put on hold while you guys were working through your streetscape redo out there on LBJ, and to advance the recommendations of that planning work. So again, just to remind you of the options of the list that we went through before, these are sort of the range of options we're going to be evaluating going forward. So the key recommendations from the 2012 plan were to explore the idea of a parking district, so a defined geographic area that would have managed parking, pretty much focused on the downtown area. Recruit a parking system manager, figure out where in the city that person would live, develop business and funding plans for the parking system, improve on-street parking management, address mid to long-term surface parking issues. One of the concerns that we had in 2012 was that if we did try to manage on-street parking, didn't have any place for the employees to go, well, that was going to be a significant problem. So the idea of adding some parking supplies, some surface parking in the short run was important. And then finally develop a branding and marketing and communication strategy going forward. Some of what we heard back in 2012, hopefully some of this will be a little familiar. But adding on-street parking was 58%, so they liked that idea. More outreach and education. Hospitality passes were an idea. Or I think that was for residents. Neighborhood parking permit programs, validation systems for customers, wayfinding to find available off-street parking, adding off-street parking, modifying unpaid time limits, parking meters or kiosks, and increased enforcement. So those were the things that, from all the community feedback in 2012, those were the issues that got the biggest response. So we're going to shift back to a poll question for you here. So similar to what we did earlier, those parking management strategies that were identified in 2012, where would you put your emphasis? Which one element there would you think is the most important? So currently what we had, at least at the end of 2012, there were 622 on-street spaces, about 24 off-street facilities. We do have time-limited parking, we still have very limited off-street options, high demand near Texas Station Square, obviously, and some unique day and nighttime demand issues when we looked at where the parking utilization was. So a question, again, currently, your current experience, when do you find it most challenging to park during the week? So Monday through Friday, is it 8 to 11, 11 to 2, 2 to 5, 5 to 9, or after 9? And I would say, based on my work around the country, that's pretty normal. That's usually the peak midday demand time in a downtown environment. Does that make sense? When do you find it most challenging to park during the weekend? Any different? So what's next? So we're here to help. Essentially, we have an on-call services contract to help move this implementation process forward. So what we're in the middle of right now is just kind of refining the issues again. This has been 4 years since the plan. We want to see what's changed, what people's opinions and how they've altered. We'll be doing more outreach like this. We have a whole set of meetings tomorrow. We'll probably be doing some surveys. Then we'll come back with a set of draft recommendations, give you another chance for input once you see what we're specifically recommending. We'll take that feedback to go back and refine the plan further, present it to City Council for their review, and then hopefully we'll have final plan approval and have a solid plan for moving parking management forward. So in one word, this is sort of one of those word cloud exercises, so this can be fun. So in one word, what does success look like for parking management in San Marcos?
How many words it is, that's
There you go.
All right, let's move on here. So here, that's the end of the presentation. We're really here to listen to what you guys have to say, but I hope you got a sense from all that just how complex parking can be. It's not just a single dimension issue. It really affects almost everything that we're trying to do in downtown. So I think we should turn the lights on.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions? Probably 3 to 6 months long term, but really it's just an on-call services, so whatever. Time frame for the study, about 3 to 6 months or when other tasks are asked for. Yes, sir.
What are some, like in the cities that do, what are some innovative examples that might be interesting for San Marcos in terms of some of the use of funds, if there are data meters put in that you've seen other cities do successfully, their levels?
Great question. I think the question summarized was, what are some innovative strategies for the use of parking funds if paid parking was implemented and generated some revenue? So back in 2012, when we ran the numbers, we ran several different scenarios. But one scenario was for basically all of the downtown area to put multi-space meters in the whole downtown. And that would, I think the basic numbers were the first year, including the capital purchase of the equipment and the installations, would generate about $500,000 a year. And then the second year, with all the capital investment paid off, it would pay off in 1 year. The second year revenue would be close to 1.5 million. So not insignificant funds. Now, there was also a scaled back version of that that only managed about 375 spaces. So it's going to depend on what we come out with, but it's something like that. One of the innovative strategies that we've been talking about is this idea of a parking benefit district. Anybody heard that term before? So the idea is that if we're going to charge for parking in a downtown parking district, that a portion of that revenue, the net revenues after expenses are paid, would be put into a separate fund that would be managed by a group of some of you, sort of a little board that would decide where that revenue would be spent. So maybe on flower baskets or banner programs or sidewalk improvements or a whole range of issues. But that idea that you take that revenue and make downtown a better place and generate more activity and more interest in downtown, and therefore more business for downtown, and therefore more parking revenues for reinvestment downtown. So that's one concept that was out there. A lot of parking systems, because of this idea of multimodal access and promoting accessibility, some parking programs are even funding like bike share programs, stuff like that. Any other?
Yeah, so the program that we had, we funded it's really important because we're in a winter climate to fund
Some transportation options because we had some surface lots that were a little bit farther out we wanted to utilize. So we funded a shuttle program. We helped fund the downtown's clean and safe initiatives. We got more people on the street. We funded a contract with the police department to secure our facilities and do walkthroughs. So, flower pots, as I mentioned, some of those nice streetscape elements. But we took it a step further into the shuttle. We also stepped up, and I've seen other communities do this as well, is provide sponsorship dollars to downtown events. So we sponsored the farmers market, a good colleague and friend in Missoula, and they're actively sponsoring, a dozen different events, rideshare programs. So I think the big thing is that when you do something like a parking benefit district, at the beginning you need to specify where those funds will be used and then who will be in charge of helping delegate those funds. Because what you don't want to have happen is you get people excited about this idea about all the things that parking could fund, but then you spend money on something else. So I think there needs to be a really clear charter about where this money will go. I think especially with parking revenues, transparency is really key if you're going to buy into a concept like a parking benefit district.
Probably the most important thing I would recommend for you, though, I think one of the things we identified in 2012, and I still think it's critical, you need more surface parking for employees. If you drive the employees off the street and they have nowhere to go, what do you expect them to do? So I think we need to make sure we've got adequate off-street parking. And I would recommend that you try to identify a site that's large enough somewhere down the road to accommodate an efficient parking structure. So that once you get to that point, you need to attract a new corporate tenant for downtown that comes in with 100 employees. Right now, you probably couldn't even accommodate that, even if you were lucky enough to land one of those. So starting to think about future capacity, I think, is an important issue.
Yeah, and just a side note on that, we understand that surface parking is not the best and nice use for your downtown land, but it's a great transitional element. So, for instance, during the flood, we lost the parking facility, the land is vacant, prime piece of real estate. The city didn't have any time or money to do anything with it, so I coordinated all the surrounding developers. They all pitched in, put in a pretty nice surface parking
the element that you can charge and have maintenance and things like that. So is that part of the study you all have done? Are you looking at an excess parking that might come online once you put in meters?
I think that's an excellent point, and I think it's certainly a strategy to be looked at, because that's certainly some low-hanging fruit. But you're right, when there's no incentive to generate any revenue, because if you try to charge, there's a lot downtown that apparently got a parking meter in it. It's like $5 a day, nobody parks there, because why should you? They can park on the street for free, right? So, yes, ma'am.
I'm really a novice on parking issues, so I just share my own experience and wonder how it works into these plans. So we try to walk when we need to go, but if we're going downtown and we want to, go to a restaurant or something, you're driving around trying to find a place, but then there'll be like parking lots like, I don't know, there's like a fast food place near the Chipotle, and they like, it's all this open space, and it's like, I wish I could park there, but they have all these signs, you will be towed. And there's a lot of places, not a lot, but I mean, we see those around, there's like nobody in that space, so how does that work into the plan? And maybe it piggybacks on that, these are private lots, but they're, sometimes in the day they're not used at all, so how do you work that into?
It's challenging, you don't want to invade somebody's private property and take it over, you can't really do that kind of thing. But you can promote shared parking. There are lots of ways you can do things like connect a couple of lots that are kind of similar, gain more efficiency. And if the city would go in and reconfigure those and gain 20% more capacity, maybe they'd be willing to share that 20% excess in exchange for the improvements. Strategies like that, but the bill would be looking for something like that. Yes, sir.
Two-part question. One, can you explain what's the 2012 plan that addresses parking for the elderly and disabled?
Elderly and the disabled. I don't know if there was a specific element in that, but certainly accessibility is an important element. We definitely want to make sure that we've got all of our ADA requirements up to speed. We've got any place we have parking, we need to make sure it's accessible from a ramping perspective or a slope perspective. So that's just part of natural parking management. But I think also the ability to provide technology. So if you do have to pay for parking, the idea that you can just pay by your cell phone or provide other options. There's a lot of other people don't aren't that technologically savvy, so they may not have cell phones, they may not want to get online. But there are other options you can provide that make it easy for them. Something called an in-car meter is an interesting option. But there's a variety of things to look at. But I think that kind of feedback, those issues are identified. Having a real parking manager in place who hears all of the issues that on a day-to-day basis could really help you zero in on what the issues are. And if that's a significant issue, I would expect that person to focus in on that area.
Let's understand what the issues are. Have them in mind that we can capture. We just want to make sure that we hear your question. Did you have some specific issues in mind with?
Yeah, I'm a disabled veteran myself, and I'm getting older, so I want to make sure that the city is looking at individuals who may have a dwindling income. You're talking about all paid parking. We're not getting paid any more money than they were. So I didn't hear that being addressed. And you specifically said that the 2012 program did not address anything that was elderly or disabled individuals. So that's a concern.
It's thinking as a parking manager.
Well, I'm not thinking of parking.
Well, that's always something that's on our list. So, accessibility issues and dealing with the needs of different groups. And identifying what those issues are is something that a professional parking manager would just look at on a regular basis.
So basically, we take those concerns to the parking manager.
Right.
Or, there's other ways to approach this. So again, if we go back to the community that I've worked in, but we thought that was a particularly impactful issue to tackle. So in addition to having a group of volunteers that helped us from like an advisory perspective, we had a disability committee that came in and provided us. We did walking and rolling audits just to make sure that our facilities were accessible. So knowing that things like that are really important to the St. Marcos community allows us to better create recommendations that fit with what we need. So thank you for bringing it up. We really appreciate it because we want the system to be accessible for everybody. And your voices here tonight will help get us there. So thank you for that. That's just one type of idea that we can implement to make it a higher priority.
There are so many levels of issues. And right now we're at a very high level. We're just trying to get the basic framework in place. We will eventually drill down to those more specific issues. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a kind of a different question for you. In your experience in parking be used to address non-parking or non-transportation issues? When I'm thinking about it, we've had a real problem develop with overuse and overcrowding of our river parks, which are right close to here. And it's been suggested that if we restrict or charge parking in those areas, that we can help to alleviate that problem. I'm just wondering, do you have any experience in that?
Well, there was a really interesting similar, so I mentioned that little town, Manitou Springs, up in Colorado, that little town just south of Pikes Peak. They had a really popular trailhead up one of the streets. Very small parking lot. It was always jam-packed. People were starting to line all the way down the street because it was so popular. They ended up putting paid parking in there because it was really becoming problematic. People were just parking all over the place. It was becoming a safety issue. By managing, regulating the parking, and only allowing a certain number of permits to park there, it really got control of that issue, and it generated for them the ability to identify how much demand there was and stimulated some planning to expand the parking area to meet the demand long term.
So that was through paid parking, basically, a number of hours and so on.
Right. Essentially, with the paid by space, you had to get a permit if you got there early enough. Yes, sir.
Basically, a couple of 800-pound gorillas in the room, and I know the city people are here, and you do show on one of the maps the city property, all the property, most of it appears to be in floodplain. But the other gorilla is the university is driving the development here at the end, but when you do identify their parking lot, are they going to put the parking?
We met with them this morning, and we met with them in 2012. They are more than willing to partner with us and to come up with creative strategies to work together. They feel like, the sense I got this morning was that they feel like they're providing enough parking. It's not always where everybody wants it to be, so that's an issue for them, but they're shuttling people around their campus. They're planning several new developments. They have 3 potential new parking structures on they're doing a master plan right now. So they are looking at these issues. They're also sensitive to the fact that I think the community senses that half the parking issues downtown are created by students. They're not sure that's the case, but that's part of the issue. But they were very open and willing to work with us, and we plan to engage them going forward.
Now, you picked an interesting week to have this discussion.
Yeah.
If you don't think they have impact.
Right.
An interesting night because they have something across the street on the square. But, no, going back to his thing with the handicapped, I have heard nothing from older people except negative about the back-end parking downtown. It impedes traffic. The whole traffic along the street has to stop while this person tries to back in.
We've heard that a lot.
Do you agree with that?
Cedar Rapids had the same issue, and they ended up taking it out. But there are some actual, from a pure parking management point of view, there are some positives to it, from the safety pulling out. But people just aren't comfortable with it, and it's just.
Well, one of your things was community partnering, and I know if you talk to the merchants downtown, if you talk to any people who are over 25 and not going to college anymore, they don't go downtown anymore because they can't park.
Which of these lines is downtown? Fine terms.
LBJ.
Oh, I don't know what the exact definition.
I can speak to that.
The main street district is red.
You asked a great question pointing to the exhibit that city staff provided, and that's exactly right. Where is downtown? That's why we don't say this program is for downtown parking, because we don't have a definition for downtown parking. This, according to the various ordinances and codes and plans that have been adopted by the city council, are the various definitions and boundaries that we have in the downtown area. Right? That's all that exhibit is intended to provide, an overview of the general area, that we have zone for higher intensity use, and then on the flip side is essentially a snapshot of our existing conditions with parking in the downtown area as well, right? We want all those facts.
In 2012, it looked like 67% of the respondents wanted more off-street parking. Well, it looks a little different on the thing that you did today. But having said that, when you did the survey in 2012, did you identify any potential spots for off-street parking? I mean, was that part of your?
We looked at the fact that there was not a lot of easy options out there, and I think that's still the case.
Right.
So identifying a preferred location, I think, is an important element going forward, figuring out what the best location for that would be.
Or many locations.
Or multiple locations.
And does it have to be a big lot, or I mean, is any better than none?
I would say some is better than none, potentially. So, but if you're going to develop, if you can find a good site that's fairly large, and you can have a site that could accommodate a parking garage in the future, that's just good
That'd be
planning.
ideal.
Right, and it's not that you can't put a parking garage on almost anything, but to get a good, efficient parking garage in terms of square foot per space, that is the point we were making with the larger footprint, the 125 by 300 in the back.
I was wondering if you could touch on whether or not any of the cities we worked with have looked at eliminating off-street parking or mandated off-street parking minimums, and how that can contribute to more productive parking management programs.
It's a parking warrant question. What is it? Okay, so the question is basically about parking minimum requirements and requirement to provide that. So currently, you have no parking minimum requirements in the downtown, right?
Yes.
Unless it's residential.
Thank you. Yeah, residential only.
For residential only. So
That's
that's,
in the CBA. Just in the small red area.
so normally that strategy is to remove barriers for development to encourage economic development. But what I always tell communities is, if you adopt that policy, somebody's got to provide that parking. And normally that's supposed to be the city. In Boise's case, they use their urban renewal districts and their tax increment financing to develop parking, so the private sector didn't have to, and it was incentive to build more parking. There's a real trend in the industry. They call it parking requirements reform, because there's a tendency to apply suburban standards to urban environments where you actually don't need quite as much. So we tend to overbuild parking to some degree. And that just displaces, it adds cost to development, defers development. It also can mean that too much land is being devoted to parking when it could be devoted to other uses. So the idea of getting that right size and not requiring too much parking, but requiring enough parking to meet your needs based on what your situation is relative to transit and other issues is an important factor there.
Vince, could I just add one thing to that? Just in brief, I know some of the parking wonks in the back are already participating in the city's ongoing Code SMTX project, but there's some real dovetail efforts here between what we're working on specific to parking management and the other efforts that the city's undertaking regarding our codes and ordinances in general that will apply citywide. And that's a really great example of one of those items, because this project in particular is not going to address parking minimums and parking maximums. The code will, right? And so it's one of several areas that these things dovetail, and they're important in the way that we shape the future of not just downtown, but the city as a whole.
So this is 2012 plan that you have. What makes it conducive to today's date? What forms 5 years later? What makes it?
Well, we're here to update it to some degree. We're trying to see if there's any.
What question?
Sorry, the question was, is the 2012 plan still relevant, basically? That was 4 or 5 years ago. So part of, one of the first items I mentioned in terms of what we're here to do, we're going to refresh all the data. We're going to make sure that it's all up to date, and make sure that the issues are still relevant. The lady in front mentioned in 2012, the number for element 1 was this, and now this seems to be the preference. So we're going to be refreshing all of that and reevaluating it in the current context. Things have changed quite a bit in those 4 years. So we want to make sure that it's still relevant and that the priorities are appropriate for today.
I've had a business downtown for over 30 years and have seen the need for increased parking. I know, the back-end parking is a hassle for a lot of people. I hear it every day, and I've got a small parking lot that I do share, by the way. I mean, it's small, but people park there all the time, and I do not tow. It is a very sticky situation because people start taking advantage of it. But I would rather be known as being the butthole who gets upset when you leave your car there all night because you didn't drive drunk, which is a good thing. And I don't mind people parking there when they go eat at the root cellar or they, do whatever. But that back end parking stays full all the time. And it's not just college kids. I don't want, there's a lot of people. And I can name cars, it's employees, and I recognize certain cars because there's nowhere for them to park. I leased 11 spots for over 20 years, so I know until I got this building with a tiny parking lot. You get a bad reputation from the code. When you guys are talking about Jack and Box and all their signs, I understand where they're coming from, but it's a double-edged sword. But I know there's a need, and I've also lived through the parking meters. They were a hassle, but they were enforced, and that revenue did come back, and it is decent revenue. It's not a bad thing. I don't believe that we're enforcing the parking limits now, and I think that's part of the problem. That we have a parking enforcement group, and I don't believe that I stand there, I've got a big window all around me, and I do not see the parking people out there. And I know we blame everything on the students, but it's not just the students, it is everybody in the downtown that are trying to conduct business, so, what do you do? But I did have a question, and now I lost it, so I'm on a tangent.
That was a good tangent, well said.
But also, in Provo or in Boulder, we have universities. But do those universities allow the freshmen to have cars?
So that's policies that prevent freshmen.
And so that talks that I lived on that campus in 1978, the parking was a problem then. So, it's only gotten more so. And some of the places that we're parking lots now have buildings. So it's partially, we've got a little problem all the way around, and I know everybody's addressing it. But maybe if we try to encourage them a little bit more.
Bring it in. Yes, ma'am.
In regards to the back end parking, as a cyclist, I kind of know some of the benefits, but I'd like you to tell everybody what those are, just so there's kind of an understanding of why they're there.
Well, from the engineering perspective, once you're backed in, getting backed in is the big issue. But once you're backed in, when you're pulling out, you can see everything, as opposed to backing out virtually blind. And I think that's the big advantage. And we have seen accident numbers go down where there is back-end angle parking. A lot of places try to put bike lanes on the back side of the angle parking. That's not the configuration you have here, but that is another example. I'm not the biggest fan of back-end angle parking, but I'm also not, I don't hate it. But I understand the benefits of it. But when you have it in a one-way environment, which is what you have, it's probably the best case. When you try to put it in a two-way traffic environment, it's even worse. But you just spend a ton of money configuring that. To undo that would be a very expensive proposition. I think that's probably one of the issues.
I too own a business on this very block. I can guarantee that the parking is not enforced. People park out front, and they're not necessarily students. We all have employee parking problems. That is a big issue. I don't know about the meters if they work, but what we're doing right now is not going to work. But you're not planning on taking away these spots, are you? But I have to tell you, if my customers had to back in on the street where we are, where it would be like this, trying to get out, it would never work. And I quit shopping at those stores where they're backing and parking. I'm sorry, I'm embarrassed to say that, but I can't do it and I won't park there. Sorry.
I will say in terms of strategies going forward, and we are going to pursue looking at the evening parking option, but we're also going to look at, maybe the first thing is to do an enhanced enforcement project first.
Yes.
Maybe that'll solve enough of the issues that we don't have to go forward. But we're going to propose both. And we're going to try to keep an open mind as we go forward. And that was some feedback we heard at some meetings earlier today. Yes, sir.
Y'all have the total number of parking tickets that were issued in any given year?
They're going to provide us with some data on that. I'm not sure if I have a
There's a enforcement falls under the police, which falls under management department, assistant city manager, so we can definitely get some information on how often park enforcement are actually patrolling the downtown area and which areas and so forth. And
There's a huge jump for 125,000 and 1.5 million. Where is that?
that's fine, just fines and people paying. There are a lot of cases where people, don't pay those fines, they leave school, they do that, so, you do get some people that, those are people actually paying fines, about 125,000.
So the 1.5 is purely paying a meter more consistently?
Paying a meter, period.
Yeah, but you're not gonna get that revenue if you still have problems with enforcement. The same problem with enforcement is going to.
Enforcement needs to be enhanced in either case. So here's another one, another potential issue for you to get excited about. One of the ways to be more efficient with enforcement, cover more area without necessarily having to add more staff, is a technology called LPR, license plate recognition. These are license plate readers. Very efficient. We actually have one in Kelly Harbor. We use it for data collection when we do parking studies. But a lot of cities are using this technology. You basically just drive down the street, it captures your license plate, it knows if you were there at 11 o'clock, and it knows if it's 2:04, you're overstayed your 2-hour limit, and it can issue you a citation that way. But it also photo documents the car and the license plate in the space, so your collection ratio tends to go up.
I'm so glad you said what you said. I love the idea. It sounds phenomenal. I have a credit card on auto pay for my toll roads. It's flawless and it's beautiful. However, you said something I didn't like. Citation, immediately issuing a citation. I think we should stop trying to beat people up that come downtown. I think we should reinvent the thought process and say, like the toll mechanism, it was 204 in your scenario, we're going to charge you an extra 50 cents instead of a citation. And I find that if we take that mentality about embracing what's going on and us working together as a community, I think we could do better things besides the gotcha swat you thing.
I couldn't agree more. And in fact, we have a strategy. When you think about parking enforcement, this is one of my little soapboxes, so I'm happy to. The occasional violator that's having such a good time downtown for the first time in 5 years, that they overstay their time limit, and then they get a $30 parking ticket, and then they go away for 5 more years. That's not really the real problem. The real problem are those repeat offenders, the employees that are gaming the system, or the students that are gaming the system, and taking up what should be a short-term parking asset for long-term parking. That's the real problem. So if we can afford to be more forgiving to the occasional violator, first ticket in Cheyenne, they call it a howdy partner. It looks like a ticket, you open it up and you're mad. Howdy partner, you must not be from around here. Here's how to park legally. So it's a cutesy little marketing thing, but it gets people's attention and it gives them information and it's more friendly.
And they're not going to come back.
And they'll come back. But if you are getting ticket 5 and 6 and 7, you may go from $20 to $100 a ticket. That's probably going to change your behavior pretty quickly, and that's the real problem we're trying to solve. So I love that approach. And the other thing with the license plate recognition is you get good data. You basically have good information on how many cars are parked in there, what the turnover is. If you can mine that data very effectively, and once you've got good data, you can manage more effectively. So, yeah.
I heard you mention earlier, we do have the one paid lot, it's the $5 for the day. As a former student but current resident, $5 for a day is a great deal, but if I'm just going downtown to eat dinner, paying $5 for the hour I'm there doesn't seem beneficial to me at all. And I don't mind paying the park. I live close enough to bike, I will admit. But if there was a different time structure, or you can choose an amount of time or go back on an app or just on my feet to add time or what have you, I think that lot would be full all the time. It's right, it's at Hutchinson and Waterloo.
And just to be clear, that's not a city lot.
Okay.
It's a privately owned lot, and they are attempting to charge for parking, and they may not be maximizing the use of that lot at the time, right? But part of the issue with that lot is something that we kind of got into earlier. It's the idea of why would you park in this one place with some space right next door or in the alley that's basically completely unregulated. It's free, right? All of those public assets that we are not, in fact, using very efficiently. Thank you.
And it would be very easy to charge by the hour instead of a flat rate. So, that's an option.
We're at at 7 now, so I want to just be respectful of everybody's time. That's the end of the time we had scheduled. We're paying these consultants, they can't go anywhere, so if you guys want to stick around and keep peppering with questions, I think that's going to be fantastic. I think Dennis will have another word or two to wrap up, but I just wanted to say, from the city, thank you all for coming out and participating with us tonight. I appreciate it.
We can definitely continue to take questions if you're happy.